Welcome to C1 L2 video 1, and we're going to talk about what multiplication is. I've got two sets here. I've got a set A that's got a cardinality of 2. It's got a star and an exclamation point. And I've got set B here that's got a circle with a dot. It's got a half moon and it has a circle. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a third set where each element from one set to the other is combined. So for example, I'm going to start with A, and I'm going to put all my set elements here in 2 rows. I've got a row of stars and I've got a row of exclamation points. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create columns based on my elements in B. So I've got the dot circle here, I've got the half moon here, and I've got the circle here. Now, as we combine them, I'm creating new elements here. I've got an element that has a star and a dot circle, an element that has a star and a half moon, and the element that has a star and a circle. And then I also have one that's got an exclamation point and a dot circle, and I've got one that's got an exclamation point and a half moon, and I've got one that has an exclamation point and a circle. So if I were to create a third set based on the union of every element from one set to the other, notice now that I've got a set, and the first element would be a star and a dot, and the second element would be a star and a half moon, and the third element, so on and so on. Well, what is the cardinality of this third set? Well, how many different elements do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so this shows us here that we've got 2 multiplied by 3. The cardinalities of both those sets equals the cardinality of that unionized set, which is 6. Now notice, what if I did it the other way? Well, instead of having 2 rows and 3 columns, we have 3 rows and 2 columns. Now, I'm not going to draw it all out, but you can see that we will end up again with a cardinality of 6. And that's the commutative property of multiplication. AB equals BA. A times B equals B times A. Now, the reason why it's important to understand multiplication as rows versus columns is for 2 reasons. First, it helps us to understand it in relation to sets, but also it helps us to understand it when it comes to computer programming. All computer programming, when you're talking about combining a list of things, always starts with rows and then it goes to columns. And so multiplication then is rows times columns of set objects. In this case, I had 2 rows and 3 columns to get us 6, or we could have had 3 rows and 2 columns to also get us to 6. Now this understanding then helps us to is used to apply to other rules of multiplication. So for example, any number multiplied by 1 is simply that number. So if I had 3 times 1, and if we did it 3 rows and 1 column, we would again simply have a cardinality set of 3. And what if we had A multiplied by 0? Well, if I had 3 times 0, I would say I've got a row, I've got 3 rows. However, it's multiplied by the empty set of 0, which has nothing, which means you would have an empty set, and thus you have 0. So that's enough for you to do the first couple problems, and I'll see you next video.